It's so disturbing when I read this. It was hard to get through. It was the worst report, most heart-wrenching report I have ever read in my entire life, ever.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford reacting to the horrible conditions detailed in a report by the Canadian Armed Forces at certain Ontario long-term care facilities. Look, I agree with Ford. It is a horrible thing to read. I've covered lots of nasty things in my career as a journalist. Horrible accidents, murder scenes, court cases involving those and worse. And yet still reading this report, there were times when I actually wanted to vomit. I have two big questions coming out of this, though. One, why did it take 10 days from the writing of this report to inform the Ontario government what the military had found out? And two, why did it take the military going in for this to be detailed? So let me deal with the first question. This report was written by a Brigadier General, Malowski, who is in charge of Toronto, and sent to a wide list of people in the military. It wasn't until just before midnight, May 24th, that the Ford government was notified. They got an email sent to them minutes before midnight. So somebody had this report. Now, the PM's office and Bill Blair, the Minister of Public Safety, have both said, no, we didn't know about it until the 22nd. Harjit Sajjan can say what he wants, but someone in his command held on to this report for days. I think it still took too long for the PM and Minister Blair to alert the Ontario government if they knew about this on May 22nd. But where was the report between then and May 14th? That needs to be answered. Secondly, why did it take the military to go in? We should have known about this. We've had audits, we've had inspections, we've had reports, we've had media investigations into all of this. We knew some of it. The exact detail was still horrifying. So why, I asked the Premier, did it take the military going in? He didn't have a good answer.
Inspections happen, and these folks come in there, but it took the military to be there 24/7 every single day until you live, breathe, eat it. And you also have the military that's accountable to the general and the federal government. Not being threatened, and I'm not saying anyone's being threatened, by the way, but not feeling intimidated if they go out and say there's massive problems in the place I work. That's my opinion. That's what I'm taking from this over the last 24 hours. And you need someone very transparent, like the military, to go in there and say, here are the goods, as ugly and as heartbreaking it is, here it is.
The opposition has blamed the Premier, and they've called for his Minister of Long-Term Care, Dr. Mary Lee Fullerton, to resign. And if she can't give good answers, if she can't enact change, then maybe she should resign. But what will that actually accomplish? The permanent bureaucracy will still be there. Those are people who are, in fact, the permanent government. They were the people who were overseeing this operation when the Liberals were in power and didn't fix it. And they'll be there if we threw out the Ford government tomorrow and put in the Liberals or the NDP. Guess what? They'd still be the people running the place. We need to start having more accountability on that side. I want to read you a quote from John F. Kennedy when he was dealing with the fallout of the disastrous Bay of Pigs invasion of Cuba. He looked at Richard Bissell, who had been the CIA operative that advised him on it, that talked him into it, that planned the whole thing. And he looked at him after the failure and he said this: if this were a parliamentary government, I would have to resign and you, a civil servant, would stay on. But being the system of government it is, a presidential government, you will have to resign. We need more of this. I'm not saying we need a presidential government, but we need to start holding the permanent bureaucracy to account. We need to hold them to account and fire them when they make mistakes, especially on a level as deadly as this. So whether we're talking about Dr. David Williams, the Chief Medical Officer of Health, or Helen Angus, who's the current Deputy Minister of Health and for the longest time was in charge of long-term care, or Richard Steele, who's the current Deputy Minister for Minister Fullerton, these people need to face tough questions. I tried putting some of those questions to Steele on a conference call with reporters, and he tried to pass off BS and bafflegab, nothing more. And that is unacceptable. These are the people that run it. So either they or the people below them knew what was going on. Did they properly and fully inform the minister? Did they advocate for change? Or did they just say, well, this is the way it's always been? We need answers on those fronts. And just saying it belongs to the elected official won't do. As I said, we could change them tomorrow and these guys would still be in charge. Heads need to roll somewhere over what has happened in Ontario's long-term care system, and that includes with the bureaucrats. No more having people fail upwards. Have them be held accountable for their decisions.